What's wrong with being colorful? Alright, so I touched on the new Paradigm Daleks when I did my review of Victory of the Daleks not too long ago, but yeah, I kind of want to dig into it a bit more, so we're going to do this as another Doctor Who dangling plot thread, because I do think they count as that at this point, because aside from the Supreme Dalek, and in the backgrounds of some later episodes, we effectively never saw these things again. They had their introduction, a build-up, they kinda won their first encounter with the Doctor, and then nothing. The reason for this has nothing to do with the actual narrative, because it has everything to do with the fact that the reaction to the new Paradigm Daleks was not great. People had numerous reasons they didn't like these. Some people flat out just didn't like the design. They were a little bit bulkier. People thought they looked like they had a hunchback and didn't love that. Some people really didn't like the color scheme. Some people didn't mind the color scheme but thought it was too bright. I didn't mind the brightness in terms of their introduction because they are literally like brand new off the factory floor Daleks at that point. Like, I would think that if they had come back more, they would look a little bit more scuffed up, a little more wear and tear, but yeah, they are a little bit bright, so some people got turned off by that. I mentioned in my review of Victory of the Daleks that I think a lot of people just took badly to the fact that they showed up and immediately blew up the Daleks that we'd had for about 6 years up to that point. Now, narratively, it makes all the sense in the world that the new Paradigm Daleks would have done that to the old Daleks, because Daleks are all about purity, and if the new Paradigm Daleks consider themselves to be superior, why would they keep these other Daleks around? They would blow them up. Makes sense. Except that people weren't mad at them blowing up the old Daleks because it didn't make sense. They were mad at them blowing up the old Daleks because it felt like Transformers the movie or Jurassic Park 3, where they take the thing that the fans already love and then kill it and then try and get them to love the thing that's here to replace it instead. And that almost never works. I mean, you know, when the Transformers the movie happened, people didn't fall in love with Rodimus Prime. No, they demanded the return of Optimus Prime. When Jurassic Park 3 came along, the Spinosaurus did not become everyone's new favorite over the Tyrannosaurus Rex. And yet, they try this and they keep trying it and it doesn't work as an approach. Now, again, as I mentioned in that review before, the idea behind the new Paradigm Daleks is very solid, but like that sort of way of introducing something like, oh, well, this is kind of like this thing they already like. Okay, cool, we'll kill the thing they already like, so now they just have this. They will love it. No, they won't. So, again, I do get the various reasons that people did not like the new Paradigm Daleks and reacted badly to them. I do think that Moffat just kind of gave up. I mean, here's what I'll say. If he didn't have a really solid plan in terms of what will be done narratively with them, and all the new Paradigm Daleks was just a chance to revamp them and put his own era's visual stamp on the monster, well, if that's all he ever planned, which I don't know either way, then maybe he was right to abandon it. Because if the entire idea behind the new Paradigm Daleks was just to throw on a new coat of paint, and nobody likes the new coat of paint, well, heck with it, go back to the old coat of paint. But regardless of whether or not he had ideas for other stuff, I think there was a lot of potential in this idea and this concept and the whole notion of the new Paradigm Daleks for multiple reasons. So, first off, I've said before that I feel like the whole notion of different factions of Daleks and infighting among the Daleks is something I would really like to see get reintroduced, like, fully into New Who. It was an element of classic Who after a while. I think probably most prominently in Resurrection and of the Daleks. And I think it came up in Remembrance a bit as well. because there was this notion of they're the quote-unquote renegade Daleks and the Imperial Daleks, those who were following, following what they had been doing and program doing, then those who were following Davros, who was still around, and they were fighting with each other, arguing over who was superior, blowing each other up, in addition to blowing up whatever happened to be around them, because that's what Daleks do. I want that. I would love to see that kind of infighting come in again. And the new Paradigm Daleks are literally a perfect way to do that, because they are a reinvention, and while the Daleks that did in fact bring them about were prepared to lay down their lives and believe that the new Paradigm Daleks were superior, that's not a reason to believe that all other Dalek forces would believe that, and that all of them would just kowtow or bow down or start listening or allow themselves to be destroyed by, these Skittle candy-colored new Daleks. So that's one reason that I think it would have been cool to keep them around. It's not the only one. I really like the idea of having the Daleks have a visual distinction that goes with a difference in functionality. That's another thing we haven't really seen since the classic era. Really all we've gotten is we've gotten the Emperor Dalek, we've gotten the Supreme Dalek, and then everything else. As the era has gone on, they've brought back some of the old designs basically as visual Easter eggs and shout-outs to the past, but they're not different, they're just Daleks again. And there isn't a lot of distinction aside from whoever's leading them, whoever the Supreme is, or in the case of Series 1, the Emperor. But you go back to, again, classic era, and you get things like the Special Weapons Dalek, which, yes, I know, did make a little appearance in Asylum of the Daleks, but the idea of specific Daleks having specific utility, and not just because some have different weaponry. I love the idea of a scientist, a strategist, a drone. I still want to know what the Eternal does. That is going to bug me forever. The fact that we never got to find out what an Eternal Dalek is. But think about how cool it would be, whether it was by this color coding or just some other clear visual distinction. Imagine the Doctor coming across some Daleks and he's not entirely sure what they're up to, but then a scientist Dalek comes through and it's like, oh, that's what I'm dealing with. They're experimenting, they're building, they're making new weapons, that's why they're not killing these things and they appear to be taking hostages. It's not hostages, it's experimentation. And he could get all that just by, scientist Dalek, strategist Dalek. Oh my gosh, it's the Supreme. You could build a specific mystique around the different color coding, a different visualization, and really just evoke a slightly different feel over just, the Daleks again. You could get something more specific because the Daleks do not always have to be just, here's the big force of them wiping everybody out, which is another thing I've kind of complained about a bit in modern era Doctor Who. Classic era, we saw the Daleks in different modes. We got them more scheming. We would get them trying to be clever. And we've had moments of that in New Who. Actually, Victory of the Daleks kind of does that a little bit. The Daleks in Manhattan tried to do that a little bit. But by and large, the Dalek default in modern era Doctor Who is just big army of Daleks until we blow them all up. And it doesn't shake up the formula very much or very often. And I think that having certain Daleks that, again, clearly visually distinct from each other, behave in different ways, would allow us to have more flexibility in the way they get used. Now, that's not to say, you recharacterize the Daleks. No, you just have them do the kind of stuff Daleks always do. But it doesn't always have to be charge in and exterminate everybody. Have the strategist behave differently from the scientist, from the drone, from the Eternal, from the Supreme. Give us a sense that, they always have the same goal, but some of them approach things different ways. And if they're working together, now we're really in trouble. That is the kind of thing that I think is a lot of the potential behind the idea of the new Paradigm Daleks. That's why I say the whole idea has a lot of potential. And as much as Victory of the Daleks was not a completely successful story on multiple levels, which I talked about in the review, it really does bother me, and it's always going to bother me that the baby got thrown out with the bathwater. That this idea, because the episode they appeared in was not especially well regarded and people kind of mocked them a bit for the look, that the idea just got thrown out. And again, maybe there wasn't a big idea behind it beyond just redecorating them, but if that's the case, then they really didn't realize what it was they had set up and what they were working with and what they could have had. And instead they just went, oh, well, people didn't like it, forget it. Like, you really could have gone somewhere with this a bit, I was going to say a bit more than you did, like anywhere. Like, effectively, nothing was ever done with these things. Like I said, they have technically, some of them appeared since Victory of the Daleks, but really, they've done nothing. Ever. And I consider that to be a massive dangling plot thread and a real shame. Because I would like to see the Daleks become more dynamic again. Because the show doesn't seem to know what to do with them more often than not. I would say, really since, well, honestly, since Series 5. The Daleks have just kind of been there when a force of opponents has been needed, or to facilitate a Davros story. They haven't had really their own proper story very often, like maybe Into the Dalek, but that felt more like trying to rebuild Dalek Con than its own thing in its own right. I don't know. Resolution had some promise, so we'll see where things go from there, but I worry about the Daleks stagnating. And it annoys me that one of the big ideas to inject some new notions into it and that could have led to a whole bunch of new style stories was abandoned so quickly. The new Paradigm Daleks, dangling plot thread, probably never going to get picked up. And I think that's a shame. What do you think about these things? Whatever your thoughts are, drop something down in the comments. Let's talk about it. If you wish to support this channel, I do have a Patreon. Even $1 a month is a help. It helps me cover my bills and make this channel what it is and hopefully even bigger and better. If you're not in a position to be able to do that, the like button, the subscribe, they both help. I appreciate it. Share this around. That sort of stuff always is a help. And of course, as I said, comment. Love that as well. And there's other links besides. There's a link to the book I wrote, my social medias, my P.O. Box address is down there. Look at stuff, click on it, or don't. You don't have to, because at the end of the day, you are the council. I'm just running the meetings, and until next time, this council is adjourned.